Good morning all, and welcome to this REC webinar about strategy or urgency, making the right day-to-day business decisions. My name's Richard Charnock from the REC, and I'm joined today by Dave Pye and Bradley Plax from To Augment. At To Augment, the team aim to help you fully maximize your own unique qualities and build the business you desire. Dave is well known as an MD of recruitment businesses and is presently a non-exec director of a number of recruitment businesses and technology businesses. Bradley has been in the recruitment industry for over 25 years, both as a recruiter, a business owner, and a non-executive director. Bradley is better known to you all as the founder of Broadbean. We're also joined today by Paul Jacobs and Howard Greenwood from Love Work Life. Their consultancy provides ethical support to help drive both businesses and personal growth. Paul has spent over 40 years in the industry and is the former managing director of Office Angels. Howard has spent over 25 years in the industry and has a proven track record of managing businesses, increasing both their revenues and profitability. Again, many thanks for joining us. Before we start with some salient questions, for the speakers, would you like to share with us your key thoughts and observations on the situation we find ourselves in right now?
Absolutely. This is Paul speaking. Firstly, good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning. It's hard to believe looking out of the window that we're all in this weird situation globally, but at least we can look at blue skies today. Obviously, we're all in this extremely unusual situation, but I think it's very important that as an industry, we pull together, we help each other, we remain supportive to each other, and very importantly, help our candidates and clients, not necessarily from the perspective of being concerned about, although we all are, about doing business, but from the perspective of being kind and decent, because if we do that, we give of ourselves at this moment, it will come back in bucket loads once the market returns.
Well done, Paul. This is Dave. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I guess there is really no template for this type of thing that we're facing. But I think my overriding message is that this is a disruption to our business. It's not a recession. This is something that started in the communities. It's not something that started in work. It's a humanitarian crisis rather than a financial one. And we're being asked to do what we're being asked to do. And as of these temporary things, we will return to a new normal in due course. And for us all as leaders, and for those listening here who are leaders, this is an opportunity to shine in a very difficult situation. And hopefully some of the thoughts that we'll be discussing and some of the questions today will just give you an opportunity to lift your chin up if you're feeling a little bit down, or just to look at it and recognize that, that there's a way out of this. We can, as an industry and as a group of people, navigate ourselves out of this disruption.
I think I agree with you. I think from my view is that although, yeah, it's very, very unprecedented at the moment in time, and we're very unsure of what's happening day by day and what's going on, I think some of the past recessions that we've had and how the market recovered and what agencies did in that time to recover are lessons that we can all learn from and start to move forward from. And I think it's important for leaders now to truly step up and show their worth with regards to leading rather than just managing a business. And I think this webinar is the start of that sort of conversations about the difference between managers and leaders, and how leaders will take their teams and lead them to a brighter future as we come out of this, because I genuinely believe this is an opportunity for the recruitment market to pull together, to pool its strengths, and as an industry as a whole to come out in a far better shape than we went into that market as we are at the moment, and come out in a far brighter place for our clients and our candidates and our consultants.
Morning, everyone. This is Brad speaking. I echo everything that's been said so far, and I do think there is going to be an opportunity to come out the other side in a better way and shine a more positive light on our industry. I think we are in a situation where we have to acknowledge and be realistic as well. The current crisis is impacting everyone globally, in work, outside work, and it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge that. But it does create opportunity as well. It does give us an opportunity to look at how we interact with people, how we interact with our staff, how we interact with our candidates and our clients, and how we want to be perceived moving forward when we do come out the other side. Because one thing's for certain, we will get through this. And I know those words might sound slightly hollow if you're struggling at the moment, but there is enough evidence to suggest that there is a bounce back when we come out of difficult times. And if we position ourselves well, hopefully we can all do that.
Well, thanks, guys. I think what your points have just put across is that we're in a really, really unique situation. But my question is it unprecedented? You know, are there any lessons we can take from recent history that are of use now? Maybe if we go to Paul to start us off on that one, please.
Thanks, Richard. Well, I mean, we are in uncharted waters. None of us have been through this before. And even at my ripe old age, I did manage to just about escape being born in the Second World War. So even I cannot talk about what it felt like in those days. Having said that, I started in the recruitment industry mid-70s. Obviously, I was about 7 at the time, but I started back in 76, and so I have worked through and survived quite a number of recessions. And I would add, if you look at the banking crisis in 2008, a depression, because I think that's what it was, had it not been for the government bailouts and so forth. And we're all still here. I'm still here, and I think that there are some lessons that we can take from those experiences, although this is obviously, as Brad said, a global pandemic. It's not just affecting the recruitment industry, which it's affecting every industry, and it's a human crisis. But I would say there are certain things that are already very clear. Number one, and everybody that's listening will understand and be aware of this fact, in these situations, whether it's a recession or whether it's a depression or whether it's a pandemic, the first thing that happens is the permanent market just dies. And that's exactly, of course, what we're seeing now. I have lost count of the conversations I've had with my clients around the country, and indeed abroad. I work with a business in Malta and in New Zealand, having the same experience. We are seeing jobs drop away. There's no good side to that, of course, but there is some upside, because what tends to happen in these situations, and I've seen it before, is that the contract, the temporary interim market, comes back very quickly. Companies will be very loath, as we start to move through this, if they have literally laid people off rather than furloughed them, to be recruiting again. Our clients will be more inclined to be wanting to take on short-term workers. And there's a big opportunity for recruitment businesses that provide temporary PAYE workers and, of course, standard contractors. And we've had a bit of a breather with IR35 recently, which is good news. There's a great opportunity for us to take advantage. And that is a fairly typical situation that I've experienced on 4 or 5 occasions over the 5 decades I've been involved in the recruitment industry. So I think we can anticipate that, and we can get geared up for that. I also believe, and Bradley said this, that there will be a very large bounce back as we climb out of this. Realistically, that's not going to happen in the next 3 months. We know that. I think that there's a reasonable chance we'll see some slight growth as we move into the 3rd quarter of this year. And I think by the back end of this year, we can expect to see some pretty rapid growth moving into 2021. Of course, that's my opinion. It may not be shared by everybody, but I think we have to be very optimistic about that and look forward to a very positive 2021 as the economies around the world climb back. For us recruiters, that gives us an amazing opportunity to do extremely well during that period. And I'll just pick up that point. I think that, and I've seen this in previous occasions, somebody's put their finger on the pause button, and we will be waiting just in this limbo period for that same somebody to push the button that says play. Once it hits play, we're back in business and we've got brilliant opportunities going forward. And I've witnessed that every single time I've come through a depression or recession in the past. So there is hope. we are in a position of the next few months where, you know, like everybody is doing at this point, we're battening down the hatches, we're doing the sensible, intelligent, calm things. Everybody needs to be showing, as Howard said, calm leadership, not making irrational, emotional decisions, as difficult as that is for all of us at this point. And we steer our ships through these choppy waters, and then we get ourselves into a position where, as an industry, we can support our clients and candidates and start to climb back and improve our prospects and look forward to far better days ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Any other views, guys?
Yeah, I've got a couple of points to pick up on that. Firstly, I agree with everything you just said, Paul. From my perspective, I've gone through a couple of depressions, recessions, and it had an impact without a shadow of a doubt. What I am seeing, though, is every time we come through a crisis, if we look at the 2008-2009 financial crisis, after that, there has been some amazing recruitment businesses that have been set up and have been flourishing for many a year. Obviously, this is impacting us all in the current climate, but the amount of businesses that you do see spring up after a really difficult time happens time and time and time again. And I remember back in, I think it was 2001, when the telco market crashed, I had an IT and telco recruitment business. And it put us in a position that we hadn't experienced before. But with a calm head, we had to make some tough decisions. You had to look at your cost base. You had to look at some decisions that you never thought you were going to have to make the previous week. But if you make it with a good head and a good heart, you have to do what's right for your business. You have to try to look after people as best you can. And we did come through the other side, even though it seemed painful at the time. And I do know that words can seem hollow if we're telling you that it will be all right and you feel your business is really struggling. But I do think there has been enough evidence to suggest in the past that when these global crises do happen, there is an opportunity that comes out the other side. And it's just really important that we find a way to get through, and using the phrase, we need to cut our cloth accordingly. It is so important to put yourself in a position to get the opportunities when the market does resume to what the new normal will be.
Thanks, Bradley. Dave, Howard?
I think likewise, I think I agree with everything that's been said there. I think from my perception, you know, sort of that although 2008 was a horrific time for everybody, I think this is almost reverse of what happened in coming up to the millennial bug. And if you look at what was happening at the millennial bug, you know, through sort of like the late 90s, work was absolutely abundant. It was the biggest, you know, employment in the country at the time. Contracting was absolutely huge. Permanent was absolutely huge, and everyone had a role to play in that. And I was a recruiter at that time for a company, and I saw the massive upside of that. However, what I saw from the IT perspective, and this then you can start to look right across the whole board of what it looks like now. Come January the 1st, every company, all their projects were all at the same position. They'd all stopped because everyone had rushed to get all their projects done for the end of 1999, for when the millennial turned over. And so what that meant from the IT perspective, there was a sort of a mini recession that came on, because every client, their projects had stopped, they'd all finished, and therefore there was nothing to go on. So from a contractor's point of view, there was very little for us to do, because the people had stopped recruiting from there. But the market started to come back as businesses start to say, right, what's the next project? What's the next project? What's the next project? And it came back very quick, and it came back very fast. And I think it's about that period in between the lull and when the actual recovery starts. What you do in that time is really important. The planning that you put in to gain recovery and have your feet in the blocks ready to sprint when the actual bell goes is really important. And what I found during that period, and certainly in 2008 when that started to recover as well, is the agencies that went to the wall were the agencies that didn't do any forward planning. They were the ones that were just living day by day and panicking about everything, rather than actually putting a process in place that would actually aid them to recover and be at the forefront of that recovery when the actual bell went. And I think that's what we've got to learn from the past, is we've got to make sure that when we come out of this period that we are all ready to move forward and help our clients and candidates.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that's a great point, Ad. I think the reason why I said at the beginning that I see this as a disruption and not a recession is that the recessions in the past that some of us have lived through lasted a really long time. And I don't know scientifically any more than clearly the wiser people than me, but I call this a disruption because I think it's a timely thing for a number of months. That could be 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, but then we'll come back much stronger, much quicker than we have in the past. So for me, as leaders, it's what do we get our consultants to do today, tomorrow, next Monday and Tuesday, in 2 weeks' time when they're in the 3rd week of lockdown and they're thinking, it was all right for the first few days, but now it's just driving me mad. Who are the candidates that in the past they've missed out on interviews for? What are they doing now? Where are they? Who are they working for? Who are the managers they're working for? Who can they be speaking to? Are the consultants that are at the desks at home should just be, if we can motivate them and engage with them, should be working as hard as ever on all the things that they were going to do in the last 12 months that they just didn't have time to do. Updating the database, or all of that sort of stuff. That's what they should be doing, because in 4 months' time, hopefully, we'll be back in the way that we want to be back. And the ones that have been fleet of foot, the ones that have kept close to the candidates, the ones that have kept in contact with the line managers in whatever sector, are the ones that are going to be remembered and the ones that are going to accelerate faster.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for that valuable feedback there. I would like to ask the audience a few questions. So we're going to go to a poll question. It's nice and easy and multiple choice. So we're not asking everybody to do too much work. So if we can go to the first poll question. There we go. So question 1, what are you most concerned about right now? And there are 5 answers. So if you can, the poll should be coming up. If you can answer that poll question for us, that would be great. Thank you.
So while everybody's filling in the poll, Richard, do you give us a little song?
An easy one to
No, I'm looking at how many responses we've got. So please trust me, you don't want to have me singing.
I've heard Richard sing. It's not pleasant.
It would spoil such a lovely sunny day. And this is coming out as very clear at the moment. I've got 76% of people voted so far, so a few more, and we'll be ready to go. So we're now at 82. So please keep voting, but I'm going to move us along and ask the next question, because as it stands at the moment, 84% have voted, but 3/4 of those that have voted have said that cash flow is their biggest concern. And so therefore, you know, what advice can we share with the audience around cash management, costs, credit control, cash flow in general? So I think maybe if I can turn to you, Dave, in the first instance to answer that.
Okay. Well, we all know in any business, profitable or not, cash is king. So I guess I would summarize it in 3 things. Conversations, commitment, culture. Conversations are the conversations you need to be having with your suppliers. You need to accelerate your receivables. You need to be having those conversations daily, as often as you can. You need to negotiate some of your payables if you can do that. Have those sort of conversations. Just keep talking. And when I say you, it's usually the leaders of the businesses that are having these sort of conversations. You can consider your borrowing options. I won't go through all the advice that's available on the REC website, but the latest borrowing options are all there for people to find out and consider those. Where you can slash expenses, even though we're not spending as much as we were, clearly that will help with cash. The commitment part for me is the commitment to your back office teams, who are less often are not quite as flamboyant as some of our salespeople who go ride the highs and lows. They need, I think, a little bit more love and attention. And also they're the ones that are going to help manage your cash, as they do normally excellently in the day-to-day thing. So I think commitment to those people equally with your salespeople, for your front office and your business support people, treat them as you would, as I would expect good leaders to do, treat them equally. And the final one, conversations, commitment and culture. As leaders, you are who you are. You've always led, hopefully, your business well. I just encourage you to be the same person and act with integrity and love, because we're all in this boat together. So some of your suppliers will be suffering as well. How you treat them and how you engage with them, I think will say a lot about your character. And I would just encourage each of the leaders out there to be a shining example of how to just have those difficult conversations well, but still have them. So it's conversations, it's commitment, and keep to your culture.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Other views?
Yeah, I think Dave summed it up extremely well. We're all aware that the next 3 months for particularly small businesses are going to be very difficult. I think it's fair to say that you've got to tread a fine line. You absolutely need to chase down monies owed. Credit control needs to be an absolute major focus. If, as everybody is, they're owed money, be on top of it really, really tightly, because, and with that, we should alarm anybody listening, some of your clients are going to struggle, and some may not make it over the next 3-4 months. And you do not want to be in a position that they go under with your money still owed. So you do need to be tight on this. Clearly, lots of organizations will try to control their cash flow by not paying bills. We don't want to be in the place where we're one of those invoices or several of those invoices that are not being paid. The real tricky thing here is that you need to maintain relationships. So on the one side of the coin, we need to be all over this, getting our money in. On the other side of the coin, to pick up Dave's point, you need to be clearly treating clients as well as you can, as I said at the very beginning of this discussion. So you have to find the line between the two. But a lot of the people that already work for you that do back office credit control work will be pretty well acquainted with how to chase down debt without upsetting people. For those of you very small businesses that do your own credit control, again, you'll understand how awkward it can be sometimes to be chasing down monies. It's uncomfortable, but nevertheless, it's essential. So I would urge you to get all over that. And I'll just pick up Dave's point. I do think we will all get judged on how we treat our suppliers and our staff and our clients and candidates during this period. We're hearing stories already of, I would say, disreputable people looking to take opportunism by increasing charges for coronavirus emergencies. Personally, I'm not happy about that. I don't think we should be, as an industry, looking to take advantage. We should be doing almost the opposite and doing everything we can to be generous and kind to help our clients get through it, because trust me, they'll remember all of those things in a very positive way when we get beyond this. And I pick up Dave's point. He's right. This is not forever. Please God, this will be over fairly quickly, and we can resume normality fairly soon.
Absolutely, I agree with everything that you just said there, Paul, and Dave earlier. I think my view is there is no reason why in 2020 we can't build successful businesses with kindness and compassion being at the core. And now more than ever, we need to keep that firmly in our mind, no matter how difficult the situation is. To your point, Paul, people will remember how they're treated in these circumstances. So what I would add is that knowledge is power. I think sometimes in good times, we can get into making decisions based on gut feels. And I think now more than ever, you should be making decisions based on facts. And once you're armed with those facts, you can then work on your cash flow management for the long term, bearing in mind that HMRC are putting on some payment holidays for VAT and PAYE. The reality is those payments will need to be made in the future, and therefore you need to account for them accordingly with some really effective cash flow management. We partner with a couple of corporate finance people, more than happy to just help anyone through that as an aside, because it's such an important part of getting things in place so you feel comfortable with the decisions you need to make when we come out the other side of this. And I suppose my final point is, bearing in mind many of your suppliers will also be suffering pain. So just please bear in mind to treat them well. It doesn't mean you shouldn't make harsh decisions, but equally, if there's a way you can renegotiate in order to keep the relationships going, I think that will come back and help you as we move through this crisis.
That's a great point there, Bradley. And I think all of that, what everyone said there, is it all boils down to how you communicate with your suppliers. And if you're having that hard decision, then I think as a business leader, you're the person that needs to be having that conversation with that supplier rather than leaving it to somebody else within the business, that you need to step up to the front and explain what's going on to your client. I think if you hit it early and hit it early enough, your client, so your suppliers will understand what's going on and understand the situation, and therefore stuff like payment holidays, etc., might come into play for you if you hit it early enough. If you try to disguise it and stop paying people and just cut people off, as Paul said, it is people with long memories and they remember what you've done, and that's what we don't want from your suppliers, because you want to go back to them when the market comes back to help you get into the marketplace. So to me, communication on that whole piece is absolutely king.
Thank you. Thank you all. I think it's time we get the audience to interact again and ask them on our next poll question. And thank you all for completing the first one so quickly. If I can press the right button and get the slide to move on. The next poll question is, what actions and support are your clients looking for? And I'm not going to sing again.
The relief from the listening public.
You could make a career out of this, Richard. I mean, who knows? Maybe you've got a wonderful voice. Perhaps this is a second revenue stream for you. Weddings, bar mitzvahs, you know, there's always this opportunity.
And remember, Rich, Eurovision has been cancelled, Rich.
Yeah, well, no, there's no chance that anybody would find my singing anything other than deafening. Oh, great. We're getting lots of responses in. So we're already up to 72% of votes. So that's great. And it's very clear what question we're going to be going to next, I think, what topic area. I've also got a question that's come in from, I'll keep the surname, so a lady called Lucy. And I'm going to, so Lucy, if you're listening and can hear me, I'm going to build your question into our next topic area. So please listen in. So you can see quite clearly there, 82%, so another high percentage are talking about postponing hiring plans of permanent staff. So there's obviously a lot of concern around permanent staff, and not just on the client perspective, but also of our own and of the industry. And Lucy's question is about furlough. So I think what I'd like to ask now really is, you know, what is furlough? What does it mean? And when is it best used? But particularly, Lucy's question expands slightly more, and it's saying, why are clients still choosing to lay off people rather than using furlough, as this is something that she's come across? I think this one maybe, can I turn to you, Bradley, please, to start us off on this?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So to Lucy's point, I think one of the possible issues at the moment is that there is still a little bit of uncertainty, because whilst the government have come out and said they are introducing this scheme, unless things have changed in the last hour or two, I don't believe the portal is live yet. But what they've come out and said is that all employers with a PAYE scheme will be able to access support to continue to pay part of their employee's salary. And they will reimburse 80% of their wages up to £2,500 per month, albeit my understanding is that does include NI contributions as well. And what it enables you to do as a business is to furlough your team rather than lay them off, which means they can't work for you during this period. And the government have initially said they will implement this scheme for a minimum of 3 months. I think that may well be reviewed subject to how long we are going through this crisis. And it's backdated from the 1st of March. So I believe anyone that's in employment from the 29th of February this year, it will be available for you guys to be able to use. Now, I think there's going to be some huge benefits for this across all industries, but in particular our industry as well, because as we've talked about, when we come out the other side, and we are all expecting a fair degree of bounce that will create opportunities, those that have got a decent workforce have been able to keep their recruiters on board will be able to maximise the opportunities. But in addition to the government guidelines, and there's lots of stuff on HMRC's website and the REC website, and it's being updated daily, I believe, and the resources are there for you to see. But there's the other side of it. Who do you decide to furlough? Which members of your team are you going to furlough versus which members of your team are you going to keep on full pay? And it's a really difficult decision. And go back to my earlier point with regards to dealing with things with kindness and compassion. I think communication around this is just so important, so that you can show that you are trying to make a decision that is best for the employee and also best for the business, so you can all benefit in the long term. And things to consider would be, for example, consultants that might not have a huge amount of experience. Are they going to be able to work at their best if they're at home alone and not being able to be managed full time? Because the reality is, if we're all working from home, there is a difference. Are you looking at trying to keep your best performers to date in place so that you can try to maximize the opportunities? Because there are still some opportunities out there. So it's a really difficult decision. I think my only advice is to communicate that with your team, to let them know that decisions haven't been taken lightly, because at the end of the day, none of us were in this position a few months ago. It's new for everyone. And I think business owners at the moment are under huge amounts of pressure to do the right thing for their team, the right thing for their business. And there's been no history to suggest how to go about that. So if you deal with it with a good heart and a good head, hopefully you'll be able to keep your staff in place, get some government help, and when we go back to the new norm, take advantage of the fact that the team is still in place.
Thanks, Bradley. And before we roll out to the other panelists, I've got 3 furlough questions that I suspect the answer will be we're still awaiting guidance, but they seem to cover the 3 areas that there's most concern about. So one question is around furlough for temporary PAYE workers. And second question is around, I'm a director and I'm an employee of my own company. Will I be entitled to the government support? Or am I classed as self-employed? And then do any of you have a view on whether furlough will be available for people that are on a fixed term contract? Now, I appreciate that none of you on this webinar today are legally qualified. So I would warn you against giving any of that legal advice. And for all of the audience that are REC members, please do check out the advice that's on the Corona Hub on the REC website, and or contact the legal helpline. But I just wanted to interject those points before we now roll it out to the other panelists.
Yeah, Richard, if I could, I mean, I'm in the same position as most people, desperately trying to get information from lawyers and accountants around these questions. So one of the opinions I was given by a lawyer yesterday, and just to reiterate, you do need to seek your own professional advice here, but I spoke to a lawyer yesterday about temporary staff being furloughed, and his advice was that you should be extremely careful around that. He didn't feel that this was going to apply to temporary staff, and that if you are in a position where you furloughed temporary staff, you might find that you cannot then get the money back from government. And that is certainly not going to be good for your business under those circumstances. So I'd be very wary. Please take professional advice on this. As I say, the lawyer that I spoke to said, in his opinion, that this would not apply to temporary staff, and we should be very wary about this point. In relation to the question around furloughing yourself, I'm guessing, because I've had this question asked of me several times over the last few weeks, I'm guessing that's possible, except to say that if you look at the rules around furlough, it is very clear, expressly stated, that people on furlough cannot work. You cannot work. Now, if you run a business, how can you not be working? You have staff to look after, you have a whole range of things that you have to deal with running a business. So how can you, and it's just a logical question that I'm asking, I don't know the legal position, but how can you be furloughed as an owner of a business if you cannot work? So I think there's a question there. There's a lot of stuff apparently coming out today from the Chancellor around self-employment, running a business. I've read this morning, again, we're waiting to hear about this, that it will be means tested. There's discussion around, again, rumours, but I saw it on the BBC, that people earning more than 50,000 would not be given any help here. And 50,000, I would assume, for a lot of people that run businesses, is a fairly low bar. So I think that we'll have to watch with great interest what comes out today in relation to the Chancellor's announcement. Well, one last point I'd make on this whole point is that, and you'll understand this, that once we get into the whole issue of working with government, getting funds from government, and indeed banks, you must understand, I think, that we're not talking days to get this money in. You're dealing with very large, unwieldy corporations and government. This is going to take weeks, if not months, to sort through. So if you put in for a bank loan through one of the schemes, I'd urge you to look at it now, by the way, if you're thinking of it. Don't expect answers in the short term. You're probably looking at 6 to 8 weeks before you hear anything back. So if you're interested in taking any of the government loans up, I would urge you to speak to your accountant and get on with that application ASAP.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I guess I think I would just encourage people to go to the REC Coronavirus website hub, because where there is accurate information that is available for us all as business leaders to look at, they will get it on there first. You know, Neil Carberry, who is the chief exec of the REC, is working on behalf of our industry to get as much information as we can, and then we can distribute that to members. There will be lots of opinions, there will be lots of people in our leadership teams within the businesses that are saying, what do I do, what do I do? And in some cases, I think the best advice I can offer is just pause until we know definitively what is available. And my definition of definitive will be, it's what the Chancellor says, and then it's what will be uploaded to the REC hub from our sector so that we know where we stand. And if that takes another 24 hours before we know what it is, then so be it. But try not to make an instant decision without having that information. I do know that things like the VAT and corp tax delays, that's now automatic. So if you're having conversations with your financial advisors, with your banks, that's already kicked in and that's automatic.
Thanks, Dave. Just to reiterate, we are expecting that update. So the coronavirus bill, which is the emergency legislation, has been announced and was passed into law yesterday. But it's the regulations that sit around that act that we are waiting for and expecting today. Just to reiterate Dave's point, the REC Coronavirus Hub will be updated as soon as is humanly possible. So we would hope to do that today, or if not overnight, then very, very early tomorrow morning. So please do check that Coronavirus Hub. For those of you that don't know where it is, we will be sending these slides out, and there is going to be a link built, or there is a link built into these slides, so you will be able to find it. I think the other thing to say is, luckily, I have one of our lawyers listening in, and they've said that the interpretation is at the moment that anyone on PAYE may be entitled to furloughing. So have a look at the changes that we will post on the coronavirus website, and we'll take it from there, the coronavirus hub, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to move us on rather than dwell too long on this, if I may, because I'd like to move us on to our next poll. And this particular poll question is about confidence. So how confident are you that the economy and your business will bounce back? So this is a how are we feeling poll question, please. Early indications are that you're a very resilient bunch, which is great. (75%, 77% voted very soon, so we'll keep that poll open. So while we're waiting, I would just like to go back, and if Lucy, it was your question about furlough that started that debate. Could you just text or answer the question just to let me know if it's answered what you required at that moment in time? And there are one or two others as well that subsequently questioned. If you could let me know, and if not, we may come back to it. Okay, so the results are in, and you will see that 2/3 of you are saying that you're a little confident, but it will take time, and 1/3 of you are very confident. What's incredibly interesting is none of you are confident that your business will not bounce back. So that's great news. As I say, we are a resilient bunch. So thank you all for that information. That's great. I'd like to move us on to the next topic now, if I may. Which is home working, really. So, you know, assuming we're all going to be working from home for a little while, you guys have got a vast experience. I counted it up, and it's 115 years between the four of you of working in the industry, give or take 10 years. What I'd like to ask really is now we're all working from home. Could you share some of the best practice for managing staff and getting them to work remotely? Let me turn to you, Howard, if I may, to kick us off on this one.
I think it's quite interesting how long we've actually been in the industry. It's a very long time, and I think for all of us that this has accelerated the change in an industry and the change in the world and how we will work. And I think I've been sort of spouting for the last 2 or 3 years that there's a digital wave coming, and you have a choice to either swim out and ride the wave or sit on the beach and let the wave crash over you. I think the wave is now on the beach, and those people that didn't ride the digital wave are now suffering. So working from home, if you've got everything sorted out, should be fairly simplistic. And I think it falls into 4 things that you've got to sort of look at. You've got to look at managing your employees and how your employer manages them. And the 4 things you need to be looking at is managing your actual home work, how you're working at home, managing the actual workload itself, managing your health, and then managing the spirit of the team. So there's been lots of things flying around about managing yourself at home, usual sort of things. You know, I work from home when I'm not out on client site. You know, I get up at 7 o'clock. I'm in my office by 2 minutes past 7 because it's such a long walk. And what I find is that, you know, I get dressed, I get into my office, I set myself, rather than setting myself a to-do list, I set myself a goal list. I set myself a success list. What things I must succeed at that day. And I make sure that I take regular breaks. I make sure that I'm dressed appropriately, so I'm not in my PJs. I make sure that I'm dressed appropriately. I make sure that I'm nowhere near a television, because I know with the sport on the television, there's a tendency that I'll want to watch the sport. So I lock all that away. I make sure that I'm in a room that the door's locked, and if my missus and the children are there, they know that I'm working. They can't come in, they can't interrupt, to stop those type of interruptions. But it's about taking breaks on a regular basis. It's about having human interaction with the rest of your team and the rest of your marketplace. So the second side of that is then managing your workload. So I always say that in this type of thing that you need to sort of compartmentalize your workload and work in chunks. So if you're doing client calls, do client calls. If you're doing candidate calls, doing candidate calls. If you're doing recruitment, i.e. interview preparation, interview feedback, making offers, etc., and then doing admin, do them all in blocks. Don't try and mix it all in together, because you'll get so lost, and it's so easy to get dragged away on doing things and then lose track of time and not really achieve anything during the day. So you've got to work really hard at that and work diligently to make sure that you're hitting everything. From a management point of view, making sure that your health of your team is a priority and making sure the team spirit is a priority. And therefore we go back to that thing we've mentioned quite a lot during this cast, is communication. Communication is absolutely king. Lack of communication will cause panic, and it will cause misunderstanding. And if you're communicating and people don't understand, again, that causes panic, and it causes the opportunity for the people to hide behind working from home because they claim that they don't understand. So how you communicate anything out to your team is really important. So I would always advise you having a morning meeting via webinar or via Skype, via Zoom, via anything that you can get hold of that can bring all your team together and you can see each other. So Microsoft Teams is a great one. A mid-morning catch-up with everybody, so you know exactly what's going on, and then an evening wash-up, so you know exactly where it is. And you need to be setting targets for your teams to achieve and see what's going on. We always talk about, if you can measure it, you can improve it. So now's the opportunity that everything needs to be going onto the CRM, and everything needs to be delivered onto the CRM. And if people are doing on the CRM, you've now got an absolute opportunity to, you know, wash your data and clean your data, because data is king, but if you can't access that data, then it's a waste of time. So accessing that data is absolutely paramount as well. So cleaning your data now is an opportunity in the downturn to clean your data. But I think what the big thing is about keeping team spirit is, don't make it all about work. Have the odd, you know, meeting where it's just a virtual going out for a beer, so everyone's sitting in the kitchen having a beer, virtual pub quiz, virtual health. So I've seen lots of people doing the Joe Wicks stuff at the moment, etc., as a team, as a business. And I think it's actually bringing teams closer together, because I think when we come out of this, people will decide, actually, we can work from home, because it's created so much trust that people are doing the right things working from home. So I think that's really important. The business side of that is now paramount as well. And I think that you need to create a strategy for your teams to build their client database and build their understanding of their clients. And I have been asking this question to all my clients just recently. And I ask these very, very simple questions. You know, if you can answer yes to all of these questions, then you understand your business. The first question is the one that I usually get no to completely, is, do you know how much your clients, each individual client, spends on recruitment each year? And do you know how much they spend in your individual niche? Because if you don't know that, you don't know which client to actually target when they come back. You then need to know who's the person that has the ultimate say-so in that client. So are you speaking to the person with the ultimate say-so, or just the person that gives the recruitment say-so? So again, is that a threat to you? What's your competition doing in there? What are they offering? What service are they offering that's different to you? And then can you compete with that service? What are they doing from an outside threat? Do they have an outside threat that is about you know, AI coming in, external recruitment coming in, RPO coming in, etc. So it's about understanding all of those things for each individual client, and then putting a strategy together that says, right, these are the clients now we need to target. So BD now becomes really important. It's not BD about jobs per se. Those markets that are still moving, absolutely is still about jobs. But for the rest of the markets that are not moving, you want to look for recovery. It's about understanding what project spend they have, what spend they have on recruitment and when those projects are going to be initiated, because all those clients now will be planning this for when they come out the situation as well, what they're going to do. So if you're hand in glove with your client and you understand what projects they've got on and you understand what spend they're applying and what recruitment they're applying to that project, you will know which clients that you need to be targeting ASAP, and you'll understand which clients have got a really good understanding of their business and how it's going to survive, rather than those that don't. Therefore, you can focus your business instantly on quick wins as the market comes out of the situation and move forward. So you've got to be really, really planned on there. It's also an opportunity now to really look at your business and say, can I change my business? If I'm 100% contingency, can I start to build in a retained service? Can I start to build in a different delivery type of service to my clients that will work and have benefit and value to my clients when I come out, when we come from the other side of this? So I think there's lots of things that clients can be doing that is all about recovery. And it's about having that recovery strategy in place. So at the moment, you'll have a day-to-day strategy, what's changing from the government's coming out and how things are changing. But then you should have a short-term strategy of, right, this is the strategy we're going to implement when we start to come out of this, a mid-term strategy of how we're going to take that forward, and then obviously into your long-term strategies again. But it's important now to get those strategies right and get your team's input on those strategies and understand your client base. If you then understand your candidate base and you own the candidates, because a lot of candidates now are being made redundant, put on furlough, etc., talking to them and understanding those and building your passive marketplace as well as the active marketplace is paramountly important. And I think having all those in your strategy is going to be absolutely crucial for when you come out and making sure that you've got your foot in the blocks and you're off and running.
Thank you, Howard. That was very comprehensive. What I'm going to do is I'd like us to move on to the next poll question, and you talked a lot in that response, Howard, about strategy. So if we move on to the next poll question, and we can ask the audience to complete that, and then we'll come back to the strategy after that poll. But what I would so far, we've had a lot of information come across, and I'd like each of you, if you can, as the speakers, to give us a no more than 15-second quick one-line summary of what you think key takeaways that we've covered so far should be for the audience. And I'm going to, because I haven't, who have I not asked? I've asked everybody. So I'm going to go back to Paul first to start us off on that one, please.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Very quickly, 15 seconds. We've got to look after our people. You know, it's no great surprise that we have wonderful staff. We're all pulling in the same direction, great leadership, real vision. Then you have a great business, and you really, picking up on some of Howard's points, you have to look after your people, and that's a lot to do with good mental health. So yes, we need to be speaking to people constantly every day, but please don't underestimate how important it is to ask them about their families, themselves, how they're keeping them their good health together. Just a chit chat, as to pick up Howard's point, have some fun, pub evenings, or whatever that you can do through things like house party apps and so forth. Don't underestimate how important it is to socialize and look after the morale of your guys, because we'll get through this and you're going to need those people, and people are going to feel quite isolated, especially younger people perhaps who live on their own. So look after them, and in turn they will look after you when this whole horrible situation moves on.
Thank you, Paul. And Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Paul said. I guess I would also echo the bigger message of just stay safe. We need to do as we're told at this time. Don't try to second guess this virus. Just do as you're told. Love your families first. Love your employees and love your business. Just keep communicating, particularly if you're on this call as a leader. The first week seems quite new. The second week becomes a little bit more difficult. As you get into that third week and you've got younger people who work for your businesses who are on their own, you need to, as leaders, step up even more and be as close as you virtually can to those people.
Thank you. Let's go to Bradley.
Thanks, Rich. I agree with the points Howard was making earlier on, and equally with Paul, your points around mental health. I think a couple of things that spring to mind very quickly. I think when you are working at home at the moment, I think it's really important to focus on the communication, as Howard said, regular team meetings, regular webinars with your team, getting everyone visually connected via Teams or Zoom or whatever. But it's really important as well not to fall into the trap of over managing people. So I think communication is really key, but you don't want to over manage people. You've got to let people do their jobs. And to Paul's point about mental health, it's something I'm really, really passionate about. The capacity to stay mentally well during tough times is called resilience, but resilience is not somebody's ability to bounce back, but more their capacity to adapt in the face of challenging circumstances. And I think if you can do that, you've got more of a chance to keep a stable mental well-being. If you look after that, you've got more chance of increasing your productivity. And I think business leaders and just colleagues just keep in touch with everyone. Loneliness can be something that we allow to impact our mental health, and we're now all working from home, so the rules of engagement have slightly changed. So talk, communicate, and look after each other. And I think hopefully that will be able to improve productivity as we move through this.
Thank you. And finally, before we move on to our very last topic, Howard, could you give us a brief summary, please?
Yeah, I think sort of covering what everyone said there, I think it's important is, I always class it as the 3 C's of recruitment: clients, candidates and consultants. How you treat your clients, candidates and consultants during this period of time is really, really important. Your clients and candidates are going through the same things. So understanding what they're going through and how they're bouncing back is going to be really important, and how you manage your consultants is really important. And therefore I've tried to change, I've been dropping out posts about changing the KPI acronym from key performance indicator to keep people informed. And I think keeping people informed is absolutely paramount in every part of the role now, from a leader's point of view, whether it's talking to suppliers about cash flow, etc., or it's speaking to clients, candidates and your consultants about moving forward. It's important that you keep people informed on a regular way and in a positive manner. You've got to keep it positive and upbeat and working from there.
Thank you, and thank you all. So one final question for you, really, and I think Howard very eloquently kicked this into the table when we were talking in the previous question. So it says it's really, if I've got a plan and a strategy already that was working before we went into this coronavirus time, is it now the time to doggedly try to push it, or should I just ditch it? Who would like to start this one off for us?
I'll kick it off quickly, guys. So I think we now have a dual strategy. We've been talking about it this morning. We're living in an ever-changing, rapidly evolving world at the moment, and it is literally like the Cobra meetings you read about and hear about at ministerial level. You need to be constantly reviewing what's going on a day-by-day basis and adjusting your daily, weekly strategies accordingly. At the same time, I genuinely think, as we've been saying, this is a pause button situation. Please God, we'll get through it very quickly. And then I think you must keep your eye on the main game and the long-term visions and goals that you've set for yourselves. This isn't the end. We're just simply at pause. Everything you've planned, everything you've wanted, all your desires, your goals, your dreams, aspirations, they're still there, guys. They haven't gone away. You just keep your eye on the long game. Remain vigilant daily, but keep in mind that what you set up for yourselves in managing your businesses, owning your businesses, is still a reality. And there's no reason why you can't achieve your long-term strategies. And it's important, as with great leaders, that you keep on daily chanting that mantra to your people. Make sure they understand that whatever we set out to do, we will achieve in due course. This is just a short-term blip. The longer-term plan, the longer-term game is still well within our grasp. And if everybody is correct and we get a very quick bounce back, a very high bounce back, who knows? Perhaps we'll all be achieving our goals and aspirations during a quicker period of time than we originally anticipated. So I think it's a glass half empty or full situation. Let's be of the mind that we retain positive outlook towards this.
Yeah, well done, Paul. I think from a strategy point of view, when we work with our customers, we talk about 1,000 days, which is about 3 years. Right now, it's about 1,000 hours. It's about what can you do in the next 40 or so days. Don't ditch your strategy, but do the things that you need to do in the next 40 days. All the things we've been speaking about on this call, I think that's what's going to see you through. I go back to my point at the very beginning. This is a disruption. It's not a recession. We will get back. Our industry will survive. We will do the right thing. I'm confident that the leaders who lead in our sector will step up. And yes, it may just be for the next 42 days. You've got to keep very close to what's going on, but don't ditch everything yet.
I completely echo everything there, Dave. Absolutely what Paul and yourself have said. I think now's the time to review the plans, look at the plan, don't ditch the plan, and have two types of plans. You know, one that's dealing with the immediates now, and one dealing with the future. And I think, you know, Paul and I have lectured on this quite a lot about that no man is an island, and now's the time to be asking and discovering whether or not there's different ways and better ways of delivering your strategy and delivering your plan. So going out and speaking to mentors, getting on webinars such as this, where people are willing to give help freely and help you through this freely, is absolutely paramount. You can't sit there by yourself and basically shoulder all the responsibility. You need to take advice to run your strategy properly.
Absolutely, I agree with everything that's been said so far, as I'm sure you'd expect me to. I think it's imperative that we focus on the here and now. You've got to be looking at today, but you do need to keep an eye on for tomorrow as well. We're currently in crisis globally, but we are going to pivot from crisis to recovery, and then we're going to pivot from recovery to growth. And you want to be in a position when we pivot that your team is agile enough, that you've got the right thought processes, the right plans in place to take advantage of that, because those days will come. And whilst you focus on the here and now, if you keep an eye on where the economy is going, where your business is going, when we do get into recovery stage and when we do get into growth stage, you want to be able to double down on that and take advantage of it. And I think that those days will come for sure.
Great, and so thank you all, and I thank you all in the audience for listening. We're going to bring the webinar to an end now, and we've tried to answer as many of the questions as possible, but know you may have further ones. So we'll send out the slide deck to you, and we'll also, and I please note the reference to the coronavirus hub that's on the slide at present, and also we're running a SurveyMonkey survey, which allows us to then feed into government, and we will be, as I say, we'll send out these slide decks. We'll also make a recording available, and I would ask you to join us next Thursday. We'll be having another webinar on different topic areas taken from some of your poll today, but also on the next slide, you'll see the contact details for the speakers, and please feel free to contact them if you wish in between or even after next week. And on that note, thank you all and goodbye until next week.
Can I just make a point there, Richard, that Love Work Life, it's loveworklifeconsulting.com.
Oh, okay, we'll correct that. Thank you.
Yeah, just in case people get me email to that.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, thank you all and goodbye until next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.